Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. After applause for the Army's successful operation against insurgents on the Manipur-Nagaland border and inside Myanmar, there's now increasing controversy over comments made by politicians. Pakistan is upset with Rajyavardhan Rathor's threat that similar action could be taken on the western border. Burma has angrily denied his claim the action happened on Burmese soil. And now Defence Minister Parikar has claimed there is a new mindset in India and it's rattled India's opponents. In response, the Pakistan Senate has passed a resolution this evening condemning India's provocative statements and hegemonic mindset. So tonight we ask, 1 year after the Modi government came to power, are India's relations with Pakistan in complete confusion? Do we blow hot only to blow cold? And secondly, is India's new assertiveness a case of mistaken machismo? Even if it plays well at home, is it seriously misunderstood abroad? Those are the questions we shall discuss tonight. And now joining me to talk about where India-Pakistan relations are heading, and secondly, what impact India's assertive machismo has had, are former Foreign Secretary Lalit Mansingh, former Ambassador to Iran KC Singh, the diplomatic editor of The Hindu Suhasini Haider, a member of the BJP National Executive Sheshadri Chari, and joining us shortly from Islamabad, former Secretary of Defence Production, Lieutenant General Talat Masood. So Hashini Haider, let's start with the state of the relationship between India and Pakistan this evening, before we come to the flashpoints that have created so much discord and acrimony in the last couple of days. There is an impression that since Mr. Modi came to power, India and Pakistan relations seem to be going around in circles. They began last May at a high point when Nawaz Sharif visited this country. There was then that effusive exchange of gifts and letters, but it all collapsed when the Foreign Secretary level talks didn't happen. Things perked up when the Foreign Secretary went to Islamabad as part of his Saak Yatra in March, but once again we're back to trading invectives and taunting each other. Where, in your eyes, does the relationship stand today?
Well, Karan, I would disagree that the relationship is going in circles. I think it actually is just going nowhere, and that is mostly by design. I think our government has decided that it wants to take a risk-averse policy, which involves actually not engaging Pakistan any more than it needs to. Time will tell whether that policy is in fact the wisest, but it's clearly part of that we are not engaging Pakistan at a diplomatic level, we are not engaging them at any political level at all, and obviously we only engage in terms of military terms when something flares up at the LOC. So in that sense, the short answer to your question is that they actually stand in a completely new place, which is not heading towards anything in particular, and perhaps with no fallback position in a sense. There is no real institutional memory of where they could pick up the thread if they were to go ahead. Of course, with this government, we've seen with its foreign policy that it likes to surprise, it likes to shock and awe, and there's every chance that when Prime Minister Modi heads to Russia next month, and is perhaps going to be in the same city as Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, something else might happen in terms of the policy. But at the moment, it's going nowhere.
How do you answer that, Mr. Chari? A relationship that is critical to India, because this is our most troublesome neighbor, but also one of our closest neighbors, is going nowhere. There is no political initiative, there only is taunting of each other, there is only military posturing.
No, when was the last time you think Indo-Pakistan relations were not going in circles? It has always been a troubled neighbor, it has always been a troubled country, it has always been a very tricky issue as far as Pakistan is concerned, and this has been so for all the prime ministers, from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru down to Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was probably one of the most well-known and famous politician in Pakistan.
Your explanation is that the relationship has always been going in circles. It's nothing new if it's going in circles now.
It has always been, because that has been the attitude of Pakistan basically. It's not a one-way traffic, it has to be a two-way traffic. So if you have to deal with...
You blame Pakistan? You accept no measure of blame and responsibility yourself?
No, not... I mean, it's not the question of we cannot conduct our foreign policy or national security policy to suit the sensibilities of Pakistan. We have to take into consideration India's own national interest.
All right, Mr. KC Singh, let's come to the flashpoints that have created so much discord and bickering and then backwards work into the way they've affected the relationship. And let's start with Rajyavardhan Rathor's implied warnings or threats to Pakistan. The Pakistan Interior Minister Nisar Ali Khan and the Minister of Defence Production Rana Tanveer Hussain have both warned India against adventurism. The Pakistan Formation Commanders Conference headed by the Army Chief has told India not to cast an evil eye. How do you view Colonel Rathor's comments? Do you believe they were justified? Or would you agree with what General Malik said to me last night? He said they should be excused on the grounds he's young and energetic, but perhaps lacking in experience.
Well, nobody has tried to modify what he has said. So we imagine that that has the weight of the government behind it. No one's contradicted him or in any way calibrated it. Instead of saying whether it's right or wrong, let's say that what is the intention behind it? If the intention was to increase the paranoia of Pakistan, I think they've been successful. Now, if the intention was that Pakistan will henceforth not create any mischief in India, I am not that sure. Because all kinds of things have been tried with Pakistan, including, as you know, during Vajpayee's time, when your entire, might was displayed all along the border. Short of actually going to war, various things have been tried. So now, if you think simply a threat or what you do across an almost unguarded border, vis-a-vis a country which has a very heavily guarded border and is a nuclear weapon state, and where the army calls the shots, then I think you are really extrapolating in a very wrong way. And you are really unnecessarily irritating a situation where then it becomes one more point of difficulty in restoring normalcy.
We have General Talat Masood joining us, the former Secretary of Defence Production from Islamabad. General Masood, these comments which have annoyed people in Pakistan, irritated people in Pakistan, were made at the end of the day by a junior minister. He's not even of cabinet rank. Yet today, this evening, your Senate has passed a resolution rejecting what it calls provocative and hostile statements from India, rejecting India's hegemonic attitude, accusing India of bullying. And if he counts for anything, General Musharraf has said to one of your channels, "Hame churiye nahi pehni," and he added, "Ki hum patthar ka jawab eent ke saath denge." Is it really necessary to step up the tempo to this extent just because a junior minister has, perhaps in your eyes, spoken out of turn?
No, I think it's not just the junior minister. It's a series of statements that have been coming out from India that have created really this problem. And I think what we are seeing in Pakistan, and I think you have to correct me if we are seeing it incorrectly, that the Modi government is extremely hostile and belligerent towards Pakistan, despite the fact that our Prime Minister has gone out of his way and continues to show restraint and is showing a very positive attitude that he wants to engage with India in a very sensible way, in a very peaceful manner, and yet the sort of reaction and response from India is extremely hostile and belligerent. And so that is the reason. It's not just because of the statement of a junior minister, it's the sort of a continuous statements that are emanating from India which have really provoked the Pakistan establishment and the Pakistan parliament and everyone. In fact, Pakistan is quite disturbed with the way that India is going about handling the situation, whereas I think majority of the people on this side would have liked India to conduct itself in such a way that we move towards peace and good neighbor as good neighbors. But I don't think that is any more possible with the type and quality of statements and the policy that is being pursued by the BJP government.
Mr. K.C. Singh, I want to bring you in there because there is a point made by General Masood which is accurate, that there have been a series of statements that have been made. Today, for instance, the defense minister publicly said that India has a new mindset, and he then added this has rattled Pakistan. Earlier, the same gentleman spoke about using terrorists to neutralize terrorists. At one famous moment, he even said, and I'm quoting him, "Pakistan ko mirchi lag gayi hai aur wo bhi Andhra ki." And then there are the taunts which Mr. Modi subjected Pakistan to when he was in Bangladesh. Are we in our rhetoric not realizing that we are creating tensions and perhaps giving the wrong impression, and that we may just think we're being clever with our witty comments, but they convey a different meaning to the other side?
I think this is always a danger when you're playing to the domestic gallery and your domestic gallery is happy with your statements, then you tend to create an expectation. The danger is different. The danger is that supposing tomorrow, God forbid, there's an incident on the Pakistan side. Now the expectation has been built up of some drastic action or reaction from the Indian side. Now one of two things will happen. Either something is attempted or something is not done. If it is not done, then it causes another kind of complication. Normally such events should be left to the imagination of Pakistan. After we had taken the action in Myanmar, I think Pakistan would have drawn their own conclusion. There was no need to have rubbed it in. So India should have just carried on going about their work, and subtly the threat, if it had to be conveyed, could be conveyed, or behind closed doors it could be conveyed. But the minute you take it to the public rostrum, then you will find a response coming from the other side, as we've seen from the Myanmarese side.
Sahasni Haidar, I want to quote what two newspapers said today of the comments made by Rajyavardhan Rathore. The Business Standard called it gauche immaturity. The Economic Times said empty, pretentious bragging. Would I be right in concluding that the media as a whole is not impressed with Rajyavardhan Rathore's comments, and possibly not impressed with Mr. Parikar's taunts and jibes?
Well, I think, Karan, normally the media is accused of the opposite, of sensationalizing what officials say. But in this case, the fact that a Minister of Information and Broadcasting, a Minister of State, could make that statement and the government has not in any way. We might have seen a slight backtracking today, if you like, a smoothing over, no reference to hot pursuit today. But we have not seen the government in any way retract Mr. Rathore's comments, nor Mr. Javadekkar's comments, who also said that India is now committed to its interests even across geographic boundaries. Now, I would like to look at it differently. Where you spoke about immaturity and other things. Somebody else mentioned it's the hot pursuit of publicity, if you like. But I really would like to look at the serious repercussions that this kind of revelation can possibly have. On the one hand, I think you are letting down diplomats who have very carefully negotiated a situation where the Myanmar government is on board with an on-border operation or more than that. And that would have taken some very serious diplomacy, and not just for 1 day or 2 days after the attack, but building on goodwill and diplomacy of decades. The second part is letting down the operational people themselves. After all, we're talking about ongoing operations in Myanmar, perhaps future operations when it comes to anti-terror operations with other neighbors. Those operations get jeopardized, they get harmed. When you put what is supposed to be a covert operation, not talked about, out there in the open, and we seem to, in the last 48 hours, Karan, have got every detail of this operation, from number of people, the vehicles used, the planes used, the time it took for them to walk, the kind of ammunition that was used, as well as all the other parts of where they were, what was their geographical location, what are the camps they are looking at. And thirdly, I would say that we are, in a sense, letting down our partners in the war on terror when we expose them in this way, and I think the Myanmar government has expressed its disapproval in that.
I'm going to pick you up on two of the very important points made there by Sahasni Haidar. First of all, you are embarrassing Indian diplomats who are very good at setting up relationship with the Burmese, but when you needlessly reveal what Burma played as a role in this venture and the extent to which it did, you annoy the Burmese government, you embarrass your diplomats. And secondly, you also place your own army in awkward positions. The army made a point of insisting that the operation had happened on the Indo-Burmese border. Suddenly they wheeled out Mr. Rathore late at night to boast that it happened deep inside Burmese territory. Did the government make a fundamental mistake by seeking to brag when instead discreet silence would have suited it better?
Karan, it's like this. Most of these ministers, when they speak certain things, when they reveal certain information, Actually, the ministers have not revealed as much information as the army itself has revealed, a section of the army, and in fact one of them have even gone to town saying that you should not have put up these photographs of all these people who took part in such a
But those photographs
activity.
turned out to be wrong ones.
But
They
that
actually
is that
pertain
apart.
to something that happened in 2009. They were
what
wrongly
about-
put out by the agency that
So-
put them out. The army
so that
didn't
is
put it
different.
out. An agency put it out,
So
and they were
even
the
then-
wrong
even then-
photographs.
Even then, the government has not put out any such figures as far as.
Nor
all
has the
this
army. That's what I'm
information-
correcting you on. It's not the army, it's an
neither
agency
the-
that made a mistake.
Therefore, to blame it on the government is wrong, number one. Two.
Who wheeled out Rathore? Who wheeled out
we
Rathore?
do.
He gave multiple interviews.
But more importantly, these ministers are not supposed to be talking in terms of like diplomats. The diplomats have to do their job. They are doing their job. These ministers represent the sentiments of the people, and if you go out in the society and ask the people today, every section of the society, people feel that this has been, what has happened is very good, and also we have shown that we are no longer a soft banana state, we are a tough state, and we can act tough against terrorism, and this is the lesson that they wanted to give to Pakistan. So there is nothing new in what these people are saying, and you can't expect these ministers to talk like diplomats, and you cannot expect the diplomats to talk like defense minister and some other minister.
General Masood, I want you to respond to what you've heard from Mr. Sheshadri Chari. He's a senior member of the National Executive of the BJP. He says ministers can't be expected to talk like diplomats. The sentiment of the people is that we are not a banana state, we are a tough state, we will respond toughly. How does that sort of sentiment, that sort of explanation go down in Pakistan, where anyway, your press, and I suspect you have the same view, believe that the relationship at the moment with India is perhaps the worst it's been for quite a while. How does this sentiment go down against that context?
Well, I am looking at it in a very different way. I think India is looking very insecure about Pakistan and is conducting itself very immaturely. I'm being as honest as possible in my remarks, and I mean this. And I think India is being also not very sensible the way it is trying to approach Pakistan at the moment. In fact, there is a huge sentiment, there was a sentiment in Pakistan that India and Pakistan need to sort of move forward. And Pakistan, as you are aware, has a lot of internal problems. Its internal threat is extremely serious. It has been fairly successful at sort of clearing the areas in North Waziristan and other places. And we were hoping that India, be more mature and try to sort of help Pakistan at this point of time in order so that it can focus on its internal threat and be able to stabilize itself and will be extremely helpful in the sense of a good neighbor and a very stable neighbor. So instead of that, trying to create another front both in Afghanistan as well as also within Pakistan, and also openly saying that they will support the Balochistan insurgents and also the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. What do they mean by that?
When did India say, forgive me, I'm interrupting you.
Just 1 minute.
I'm interrupting you only because I want clarity. When did India say it will openly support Balochistan insurgents? When did it say it would support Taliban?
Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to say is that, look, when they are saying that they will also support the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and that means they will also support the Taliban in Afghanistan. And all this, what sort of...
when did India say that?
I mean, the turbulence they are creating.
I'm asking you, when did India say that? I don't recall any Indian minister saying they will support insurgents in Balochistan. I don't recall any Indian minister saying they will support Tehreek-e-Taliban
Well, I mean,
in Pakistan.
they have said that they will support insurgency. They have said that they will support insurgency openly.
No, I think what the
Please
minister
ask
said
anyone.
was,
It is
I think what the minister said was they will use
Absolutely,
terrorists to neutralize terrorists, not support insurgency. But I don't want this to become a tutu meme between you. I want to pick up, Mr. K.C. Singh, on a point that General Talat Masood began with, which might strike a chord with you. That India is the bigger of the two powers militarily, politically, economically. At the moment, it is the most secure power. It doesn't have the same level of problems Pakistan does. Yet, it is the Indian ministers that seem to be constantly taunting and jibing Pakistan. Is India acting immaturely? Does India reveal through these comments that it's got a bit of a complex about Pakistan?
I think, Karan, the impression one gets is that BJP is conflicted between sometimes being pragmatic and reaching out. Say even the alliance with PDP in Kashmir, it was said at that point that one of the preconditions or unsaid conditions was that there will be a dialogue with Pakistan. So on the one side, you put up with whatever the Hurriyat people do, the Pakistani flags, etc. You go along with the PDP line. Then on the other side, they play to a domestic audience. So they're doing two things at the same time. You play to a domestic audience and allow a lot of venting to take place. Now you cannot conduct diplomacy like this by having a separate domestic policy and a totally different policy vis-a-vis Pakistan. You can only have one approach to Pakistan. Pakistan is getting confused by all this, and I think down below there is an assumption, and that's a very oversimplified assumption which I've written about, that you think somehow Pakistan is going down the tube. So why do you, let them go to whatever lowest point they can and then we'll see what to do with them. Or maybe the Pakistani army will sue for peace. But that is a very mistaken notion, because Pakistani economy has stabilized. Pakistan today is in a better position vis-a-vis Afghanistan, and we are in a worse position than we were 6 months ago. With the new president, they are absolutely dealing with them. And finally, look at the money that China is getting ready to throw into Pakistan. So to assume that Pakistan is a failing or failed state, and therefore let it go and hit a wall if it has to, and then we'll pick up the bits, is I think an oversimplification. So there is a lack of coherence in the policies, and that is why the flip-flop.
That's a very interesting point, a lack of coherence. You're conflicted, you seem to have the wrong assumptions about Pakistan, therefore your response is wrong.
No, there is a lack of coherence in how we are looking at Pakistan. Here is General Talat Mahmood, who himself says that we have serious problems inside Pakistan, we have got so many problems inside Pakistan, and we are struggling with our internal security situation and all these things. They are saying it. And they are struggling to deal with Taliban in Afghanistan. They are struggling to deal with the situations that are arising after the Americans are leaving.
Are we making a mistake with these taunts and these jibes? Are we showing a complex?
It is been there, heard that. We have all heard that Pakistan is a failing state and all that. It's different
but
issue.
It may not be quite as failing and as fast failing as you think it is.
It may not be, and we don't want Pakistan to be a failed state.
We want why these taunts, why these jibes, why this complex about Pakistan?
Just as General Masood is expecting India to behave, we have every right to expect Pakistan also to behave, at least for once.
Let me bring you in, Suhasini Haider, and let me put to you a view that's been expressed when people were talking about 1 year of the Modi government, and this view was expressed by people as varied as Arun Shourie on the one hand, Sham Saran on the other, and a variety of foreign correspondents. And they say that India's policy or attitude towards Pakistan as viewed over this first year either shows lack of clarity or absence of strategic thinking, or maybe even confusion of intention. Do you think any of those three perhaps lie at the heart of this fact that you said we're going absolutely nowhere with this relationship?
As I said, Karan, I genuinely do believe that the government wants to right now not have a policy. This is a government that has been very proactive in many spheres of foreign policy. Prime Minister Modi clearly believes in the summit style of diplomacy. He thinks he can reach a capital and actually fix problems between two countries. He's tried it in so many places. Bangladesh is another example of proactivity. But here, when it comes to Pakistan, we see absolutely no movement, except perhaps a negative one if you look at all the rhetoric that has followed. So I don't know if there is confusion. I certainly know that the government has succeeded in confusing lots of people because of what Mr. K.C. Singh also referred to. On the one hand, the invitation, on the other hand, the cancellation of talks, but then again keeping up the talks when it comes to the telephone between him and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Yet when twice the two men have been in the same city, once in the same room together at the SAARC summit in Kathmandu, not having any talks between the two countries. Now I think there is, as you said, a certain element of confusion. Karan, if I may, I just want to just say to Mr. Chari that to say that ministers cannot be expected to be diplomats doesn't absolve them of the Official Secrets Act. It doesn't absolve them of their responsibilities as representatives of the government. I'm not sure that the government itself is aware that in the Myanmar Constitution, Article 1, Charter 4 actually says that no foreign troops can be deployed in the territory of the Union of Myanmar. So by making that assumption, both Mr. Rathore and Mr. Javadekar are really doing much more than just speaking as politicians and appealing to some community that Mr. Chari says has been pleased by the
just put the record straight. There is no infringement of any official secrets act as far as
she's not talking about infringement of the Official Secrets Act. She's saying something even more important. She's saying that in fact both Mr. Rathore and Mr. Javadekar, in revealing that the Indian soldiers had crossed the border of Myanmar and operated on Myanmar soil, are actually making the Myanmar government guilty of breaching its own constitution. That's worse.
No,
you can't deny that.
If you go into the details, this is not the case.
This is the detail. What do you mean going into the details?
That's not that. We have approached the government of Myanmar and it is with their permission, and this is not the first time that we are doing this. Myanmar has also done the same thing with our permission. We have done the same thing in Bhutan.
Mr. Chari, you're forgetting a critical point.
These things are all done with permission.
Give me a chance to explain. You're forgetting a critical point. There's no doubt that whatever we did in Myanmar was done with the support of the Myanmar government and their knowledge. However, the Myanmar government agreed to something that is a breach of their constitution, and they would have hoped that you'd keep quiet about it. They did it as friends to assist us. When you go public, you embarrass them because you're proving to the world they breached their constitution. That's why they're embarrassed. But let me bring in the former Foreign Secretary who joins us, Mr. Man Singh. Mr. Man Singh, we've been talking about the state of India-Pakistan relations, not just over the first year of the Modi government, but in particular as a consequence of the taunts and jibes that we've heard recently from a variety of Indian ministers. Our defense minister saying Pakistan ko mirchi lag gayi. Our defense minister today saying Pakistan is rattled. Our defense minister saying we're going to use terrorists to neutralize terrorists. Our prime minister going to Bangladesh and comparing India's behavior with Pakistan's behavior, calling Pakistan a nuisance. And what General Massoud said, and that's the question I want to put to you, is that he can't understand why the bigger of the two countries, the militarily more secure country, the economically more powerful country, the country which has less problems compared to Pakistan, is to have this immature attitude of wanting to taunt Pakistan, almost as if India's got a complex about Pakistan. How do you respond to that key concern?
Well, I think it's correct that a lot of our ministers have been speaking irresponsibly, and a lot of diplomacy is conducted in confidence. And certainly this is a breach of confidence. We have been cooperating with Myanmar, and we have had a good relationship with Myanmar in dealing with our insurgents in the northeast, but never have we sort of announced from the rooftops that we are doing this and we are breaching Myanmar sovereignty. But having said that, I want to make a point here. After nearly a year of flip-flops, I think we are seeing the emergence of a policy on Pakistan.
Which is?
And I think it has about 4 elements. One, that Mr. Modi thinks that it's worth investing more in other neighbors than in Pakistan because the law of diminishing returns is operating.
Number 2?
We're getting less and less out of Pakistan from more and more discussion. Number 2 is give a vigorous response when there is a violation of the LOC and the IB.
Number 3?
And last year it has been a record number of violations.
Number 3?
Number 3 is that you keep the door open for discussions if it is on economic issues, but the ball is in the Pakistani court. Number 4, I think there is a hint now for the first time that Pakistan can be given a taste of its own medicine, that if they are using non-state actors, too can play the game. And Pakistan is as vulnerable now.
I'm going to stop you there because we're going to lose the satellite connection to General Massoud. I'd like him to respond to this before we lose it. General Massoud, you heard what the former Foreign Secretary Lalit Man Singh said, and in fact the 2 important points I want to put to you is he believes there is a new policy or attitude that has finally begun to take shape in his eyes vis-a-vis your country Pakistan, and the 2 key elements of the 4 that he mentioned that I want you to reply to is: 1, it's probably better for India to invest in other SAARC countries rather than Pakistan. And secondly, Pakistan must be given a taste of its own medicine. And that if you're going to use non-state actors, we're capable of doing the same. And this ties up with his 3rd point, give Pakistan a more vigorous response.
Well, I think my response to that would be that firstly, there is no such thing as that you are investing in other countries, so you should not invest in Pakistan. To me, this is the most ridiculous sort of a policy as far as I am concerned, because Pakistan is important for India, and India is extremely important for Pakistan, so I think they need to be good neighbors, and you should have a positive policy so that you can live peacefully and not create problems for each other. So I think to just ignore Pakistan would be a strange policy as far as it would be a very dangerous policy, because it will always mean that you would be going down the drain. Second, as far as teach Pakistan a lesson, there is no such thing as that. Because I think Pakistan has transformed a lot as far as using the asymmetric forces is concerned. That policy is no more valid as far as Pakistan is concerned. And there is no proof whatsoever that India can give that their asymmetric forces are being used against India anywhere in India. So I think this is just an excuse for trying to browbeat Pakistan and demonize it. I would expect, just my last point would be that I would expect that I think we can there is still some political space. But if we continue this line, I think all political space would be lost. And all what would happen is these type of statements could lead to something quite serious.
We're going to be losing this line to you in Islamabad very quickly, perhaps even in minutes, if not seconds. I want to ask you a quick question before we do. How do you view the Modi government today? As an analyst, as a former army general, what is your present view of the Modi government and its attitude to Pakistan? But you have to give me a short answer, because we may lose you in the middle when the satellite goes.
Well, I think our expectations were quite high, because we were thinking that he would also conduct himself like Mr. Vajpayee. But we are deeply disappointed the way that he is going about. And his belligerence is extremely troublesome and could be dangerous.
When you say belligerence, are you suggesting he has a complex about Pakistan, that he carries some sort of baggage about Pakistan? Is that
well, I think he is bent upon pursuing a policy which is extremely one-sided. As has been said repeatedly by your people, that he wants to teach a lesson. There is no such thing as teaching a lesson to a nation of 220 million people and a nuclear power. So I think we have to conduct ourselves in a neighborly manner and be more mature about it.
How do you respond to that thing? He's belligerent towards Pakistan.
For all that praise that he is heaping on Vajpayee or Dr. Manmohan Singh also for that matter, how did Pakistan respond? You tell me one political party in Pakistan or one segment in Pakistan which has responded to our friendly overtures towards Pakistan. They have never done it. Every time that we approach Pakistan, we walk 10 steps and they are expected to walk at least 5 steps. They have not done it. They have faltered. There may be fault lines within Pakistan which does not allow them to reciprocate, but that does not mean that the blame has to be taken by India.
Mr. Man Singh, you're listening to Mr. Chari's explanation. Do you believe in fact that what General Masood calls the belligerence of Mr. Modi is actually, as Mr. Chari says, a reflection of a certain frustration because we take 10 steps and there's no response from them?
Well, I respect General Masood, is a friend of mine, but the fact is that Mr. Modi started by extending the hand of friendship to Mr. Nawaz Sharif. But what has happened over the year is more ceasefire violations, MFN not granted to India, which was promised by the Zardari government, and raising the Kashmir issue in international forums. Only last week, General Sharif says that Kashmir is inseparable from Pakistan. It's the unfinished task of partition. If Pakistan really wants friendship, they should know that if you raise Kashmir, you're giving the signal you don't want a dialogue.
To my amazement, that satellite connection with General Masood is still there. Do you want to quickly reply to General Masood, because we're going to lose it in seconds, I think?
I think, when our High Commissioner wanted to meet the Hurriyat people, I think he was so much snubbed. And I think it wasn't such a serious matter. So I think we got a signal from India that they just don't want to talk about Kashmir. So I think what I'm trying to say is that if there is such mutual suspicion, the best thing is to engage in a dialogue. And why are they not engaging in a dialogue? What is the point in just saying we want to isolate Pakistan because we are a very powerful nation? We want to sort of engage with each other so that that is the only way to move forward. My view is, irrespective of what you think of each other, the best way is to engage. And why are you not engaging? Why do you think that you are so big that you can just ignore and say, well, we don't want to even talk?
Let me put that to KC Singh. KC Singh, you've been hearing the conversation as it's gone on. Do you get the feeling that both sides feel the other has rubbed them up the wrong way? Both sides feel that they are the badly treated party. Both sides feel they've been unjustly treated by the other. And therefore, there's a communication gap in addition to whatever complexes are also playing their part.
You're absolutely right. If you're just going to be nursing hurts, there are enough set of hurts on both sides. But I think what is probably happening on the Pakistan side is they're not realizing the impact of things like Lakvi being let out, no movement on the 2611 trials. I think each side is not understanding the sensitivities of the other and the core concerns of that particular party. There is that lack of empathy. And that has to be broken by the Prime Minister. No one but the Prime Minister talking to Nawaz Sharif can break that. And he is a communicator. When he wants to win over someone, he can win over someone. He has some hesitation. He has to get over that. And somewhere maybe USA, where that meeting of Shanghai Corporation and then G4 is there, of BRICS is there. Let the two leaders meet. I think when you come to a deadlock like this, it can only be broken at the human level between the top leaders. And I saw it happen in Sri Lanka with Mr. Vajpayee and Mr. Nawaz Sharif when they began, just very quickly, when they began their discussion after India's tests, I'm talking of 98, the delegations went in and then the delegations marched out because PM Vajpayee turned to Nawaz and said, don't you think we should talk to each other? And he readily agreed, and then he opened up when the delegations had left. So I think there is that space which the leaders have.
I'm going to ask you to answer literally in one word because we need to take a break. Are you therefore saying that the onus is on Mr. Modi because he's a good communicator, he can win over people, as you said, the onus is on him to reach out and try and break this impasse? Is that what you're saying, KC Singh?
No, I'm not saying because of big or small. I'm saying is, if you see, Nawaz Sharif has not issued that many irritating statements as Pakistan sees coming even from Prime Minister. Because going to Dhaka and then raising Pakistan there was really exceptional. You don't do it. You don't raise Pakistan in a third country. But Nawaz Sharif himself, we are more angry with certain actions of or lack of action on the part of Nawaz Sharif, but not so much as articulation. So I think Mr. Modi needs to really get over this thing where they find some of the remarks coming from Indian leadership abrasive.
Let me ask you a simple question. What's the way forward? Or maybe I should say, is there a way forward at the moment that anyone can see?
Yeah, of course there is a way forward. The way forward is to have a dialogue. But then we've had 18 years of dialogue between the two prime ministers. And it was left in the UPA with two principles laid down by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, which is that you must dismantle the infrastructure of terrorism in Pakistan and you must bring to justice the perpetrators of the Mumbai attack.
And neither has happened.
Neither has happened. Mr. Modi
So let's not go backwards. What then is the way forward given this situation, or is there no way forward?
Well, the way forward is, I think Mr. Modi is trying a different tack now, and let's see if that gives results.
As a former foreign secretary, do you have confidence that this new tack, which you described in part one, could actually clear a pathway?
Well, it will create a lot of hand-wringing and agonizing in Pakistan, but I think they must get the message that ending terrorism is the only way by which you can have a dialogue.
And this is the best way of conveying that message?
And this is a good way of conveying that message.
Mr. KC Singh, I want to come to you because you was honest enough, courageous enough in part one to suggest that the time has come for Mr. Modi, who's a great communicator, who has the capacity to win over people, to even win over people who tend to be hostile to India or to him, that he ought to take some sort of initiative. Now, I recall historically, going back almost 40 years, that it took an Anwar Sadat to fly to Jerusalem to break the deadlock between Egypt and Israel. And unfortunately, he paid for it very highly. But is there need for something like that, a gesture of that order, to cut through the Gordian knot of 65 years of impossible history?
That would not be immediately possible, because the person you deal with, Nawaz Sharif, he doesn't have all the power. The power is divided there. There is the military and there is the clergy and the militant groups and so on and so forth. But the more you avoid meeting Nawaz Sharif, you push him into the arms of the army. So you're closing the ranks between them. So you have to basically divide them. So Nawaz Sharif, you have to engage, punish the Pakistani army if you want, continue threatening them or responding to them, and in the meanwhile exert pressure internationally and bilaterally to have Nawaz Sharif control his, the militants roaming around that country. Now, it can't be that you just don't deal with them, then all of them go in one box. Then they have no divisions at all. Then you're really dealing with one amorphous lot.
So then the real message from you to Mr. Modi is that you need to find a way of dealing, of meeting, of talking to Nawaz Sharif, strengthening his hand, separating him from his own army and its influence, and giving him space and room to be able to respond to you as well. That's your real message to Mr. Modi.
Absolutely.
And in not talking to Nawaz Sharif, Mr. Modi is actually not helping India's own interests vis-a-vis Pakistan. Is that right?
Then you're treating them as one lot which can't be dealt with, which is a very negative approach, and just hoping that over time they will either self-destruct or they'll go away. They can't go away. They're a neighbor. And my earlier argument was they're not about to self-destruct either. So, you have to deal with this entity, and the Americans have disengaged.
Mr.
And I think the whole situation beyond Pakistan has evolved tremendously. Shia, Sunni, West Asia. We can't sit this out.
Mr. Chari, we can't sit this out. Some action is needed. Our Prime Minister needs to take an initiative.
No, I think the Prime Minister has taken an initiative right from the time he took oath of office when he invited. It is for Pakistan also to do the proper course correction, and if Pakistan doesn't do course correction, you cannot blame the Indian Prime Minister or the Indian media or the Indian diplomat or the Indian politicians for the acts of commission and omission on the side of Islamabad. I think it's a two-way traffic. We have done our job. We are doing our job. Pakistan has to now come back.
So in a nutshell, the ball is in Pakistan's court.
Absolutely.
All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. My thanks to both of you for coming to the studio. My thanks to K.C. Singh for joining us. And earlier, my thanks to Tashni Heather, as well as General Khalid Masood. If you have, my thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night.